All right, so this is Today Kids, or guys, or peeps, on my channel, TPAW chimes in. I'm reviewing A Silent Voice. Along with me as my guest, who I've known this guy for well over quite a few years. He's known in Discord as Janos, though it's more of a joke because someone misspelled his name and called him Janos instead of Jonas because that's his real name. And so I've just kept with it and always call him Janos, even though like it's totally Jonas. And in my Discord server, the We Are All Disturbed server, which by the way, little background, I named it We Are All Disturbed because every time that the singer for Disturbed is doing a live show, he goes, "We are disturbed, we are," and then he says, "We all are disturbed," and so that's why I named the server that. But basically, I've known him for well over a few years. It actually was from a previous Discord server, but this is A Silent Voice. We are going to be reviewing it, and go ahead and go into a bit more of like who you are, Jonas. That way we can kind of get more of like an idea of who you are, because they know who I am. They know that I'm T-Paw, and they know that I've reviewed like Wonder Woman. I've reviewed Soul, which that'll be uploaded soon. I've reviewed Birds of Prey with Ghostel. So kind of give us an idea of like who you are.
Okay. First of all, thank you for having me in your show and so on. It's really nice that a review is something I always have wanted to do. And my name is Jonas, and I like movies really much, and I always be interested in movie review and so on. So
absolutely.
Now I will finally get my chance to talk about one of my favorite movies of all time, which is A Silent Voice, or A Takeover Voice, if you go for the other title.
Yeah, which by the way, I noticed that by the end of the movie, I know I'm jumping a bit, but at the end of the movie, they actually put in like a different title for the movie, which kind of threw me off. Like, and I think that was like the original title or whatnot. So the Silent Voice probably is like the American version of the name of the title. But they had like the actual like title for the movie at the very end of the movie, and I was like, oh, okay, so that's actually what the regular title is. But yeah, so you were telling me before that this is probably one of your favorite movies you've ever done, or at least that you've ever seen.
Yes.
So it's like, so this is kind of like a massive like a thing for you, like this, like how I did with Amber, where like she got to review Birds of Prey, and like Harley Quinn's like one of her favorite characters in all of DC. Like this is one of your favorite movies that you've ever seen. So a little bit of background, like what is it? What's one of your favorite parts of this movie?
Do I have to choose one part? But one of my favorite parts about the movie is both the message and how relatable it somehow is. Like even if you haven't been in the same situation like all of these guys, you then at least maybe relate to some of the feelings. Maybe you have been through bullying, or maybe you feel alone. Maybe you are full of guilt of something you have done. And every emotion is a pretty human emotion, and it's something that some of these feelings connect with me pretty hard. And like my favorite part about the movie is like the message, but we talk about that later on.
Yeah, I kind of want to actually get into that a little bit right now. Like the message that I think that this movie, like we'll talk more about it. But one of the messages that I got from this movie was, at any moment you could check out of this world. At any moment you could check out. At any moment it could all end. And we'll go into that a bit more in the plot, like what happens and why that is. But the movie is about, like, when it comes down to it, it's about learning how to communicate. It's about learning how to, communicate more than just words. Because part of this movie, like, throughout this movie, like, as far as, like, how all the characters interacted, was they relied heavily on their words, right? Like, how normal human beings are. But at the end of the day, like, for instance, Shoko, she relies heavily on her notebook, Like she has like her notebook that she has, and she asks people to write in it, and she like writes down words and stuff on it. And then the other characters have this disconnect where they can't do that, like where they don't want to do that. It's not that they can't, they just don't want to. And so they basically force her to communicate on their grounds rather than on hers. And so it's like there's like this disconnect in like how they're willing to communicate together. And one of the things that I thought that was really impactful and really strong for me in this movie was the fact that all these characters together could easily have had a much better experience if, one, they learned sign language a little earlier instead of fighting it, and two, if they learned how to, be better friends together. And that's one of the things that really struck me. Like, I got seriously emotionally invested. Like, by the time I got to the middle of this movie, because no joke, he literally asked me in Discord. He's like, "So, where are you at with the movie? Like, how is it so far?" And I was like, I put one line: "These people are pricks," and it was like this, just like right there, right in Front Street. These people are pricks. And then like later on, I put in the movie, I was like, I didn't want to do like a play-by-play where like it was like me saying everything that I thought of the movie as I went along, because I wanted to like go into it a little bit more after the movie was done, because of the fact that I expected to be a bit more level-headed and not be like, "Ah!" But like, as the movie was going on, and by the time I got to like the end credits, like there was a part where Amber got like, it was like halfway through the movie, like it was like there was a part of the movie where he was finally got a cell phone, and she was having her cell phone, and they were going to text each other. And at that point, Amber came out, I guess, because the kid woke up or something again, because the kid does that. They get frightmares and stuff. But like, she came out and she was like, "Fuck you, I'm going to come watch this movie with you." And I'm like, "All right, dude." I'm like, she had moved me over. I had my hood up because I was all like, "I'm going to cry." And so I put the hood down and kind of sat with her, and like we just kind of sit there, and we were watching this movie, and there was quite a few times where like she grabbed my hand, and it's not even a horror movie, but she grabbed my hand and she just all like, "Shut up," like she's expecting me to make fun of her, and I'm just like going, "I'm not making fun of you. I'm trying not to cry myself. I'm trying not to be a man, bitch." And so like I'm sitting there trying not to to cry and shit. And this movie, like, it hits you. Like, it hits you hard. It hits you, and when it hits you, when you're on the ground and you're like convulsing in fetal position, and you're just like, "Ah!" Like tears are falling off your face and shit. Like, it hits you again, and then again, and then again. And when you think that it's done with you by like an hour and change in this movie, when you think it's done with you, when you think it's done, it's like you're like, "No more, don't make me cry." Like, it's right there. Like, it just, it's right there. Like, I know I'm being a little dramatic about it, melodramatic, but that's kind of how it felt for me, like, going in this movie, was that, as far as Synopsis goes, you have the kids. It starts out with the kid, the very beginning kid, Shoya. I'm trying not to butcher these names, because when I was like trying to watch this movie, I'm not an anime person. Janos is definitely. My wife is, but like,
I still have problem to pronounce Japanese name.
Yeah, it is hard for me to understand all their names because I'm a dumb American. But like, I was like watching this movie, and Ishida, because they kept calling him Ishida, so I guess I'll call him Ishida to be safe. But like, basically, starts out with his point of view, and he starts out saying, "I was gonna jump off a bridge and kill myself," and then like at first you're just like, "Huh? Like, what the hell? How did we get to this point already?" And then like he kind of goes into it, and like it shows the kids all learning of this this new student that comes into class. She's carrying her notebook. She's super shy. Her hair's in her face, and then you find out that she's got hearing aids. And then you watch as all the kids start to torment her and start to bully her, and it's because she can't talk, like, and it makes them uncomfortable, and they get all shy, but they can't admit it. Like, they don't have the balls to be like, "I want to know how you talk," right? Like, they don't have that, the bravery. So it's like, that's kind of where this movie starts off, is that kid has trouble communicating with deaf girl. Deaf girl can't really talk to him very much, and so they're trying to communicate. and Shoko and Shoyo have like that disconnect already, but then they have the kids who are making fun of her, and so that's kind of where it starts. You want to kind of carry on from what I'm talking about? Kind of jump into it a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't want to be like talking the whole time.
I think later on in the movie, we are going a little bit in the future, and we see that all of this, what happened, it made the girl finally quit the school, and the guy has feel guilt every time that happened, and we get to know that how he had developed social anxiety, and every person he meets have an X around the face, and he can't look at them in the eyes. He can't hear what they are saying. And if someone is trying to get his attention, he just look away. And you see that he sees this girl again, and now he learn sign language and all, and he try to like get connected with this girl again to maybe get an possibility to apologize, but then he really wants to get to know this girl and so on as well, and that's how the story starts to play out.
Yeah, and I liked how what good call out there, like where he can't really socially interact with a lot of people later on. Like he's so scarred by his childhood and by like what he did to her, as well as like how he is as a person. And so he basically spends part of the movie averting eye contact. Like he's walking throughout crowds, and he's walking in the school, and he's trying to interact with his fellow classmates, and like they have like these X's, like they illustrate in the anime design his inability to communicate with them because they have X's over their faces, and so he can't talk to them. Like he can't look them in the eyes. And I was like going, is he like mildly autistic or something? Is something going on here? And it was like this form of social anxiety, like extreme social anxiety, in which like when he's trying to talk to them, they're trying to talk to him, and like he hears some of what they're saying, but not a lot, because his mind isn't able to understand it all because it's too overloaded. Like there's like a social overloading, like my brain says auxiliary, but I know that's not the right word. Basically, he's having like an overload of some kind, and so when he's talking to people, like he's having an issue with communicating, and this frequently comes up throughout the story, and it's like their way of linking Shoko and Shoyo's like their inhibitions, like their abilities to communicate, like I don't like saying the word disability, but it's essentially what it is. Like they're having trouble communicating, and that's one of the underlying themes of this movie is learning how to, listen, as you put. Like there was a thing where you said that you saw on the internet that someone put where she can't hear him, but he can't listen. And so like they have like this thing where they're trying to show you as the audience that this is what happens when not only is this what happens when you can't listen, but this is also what happens when you're unable to. And so like but yet the really beautiful part that I saw in this movie was there was several parts where he had trouble listening, and yet he tried, and he was still trying. And he, like, they often communicated better when they weren't saying anything at all to each other, when they were just holding each other's hands, or whether they were finding other ways to communicate.
Yeah, I found that he found a lot of many different ways to communicate throughout the movie. Like you mentioned when they are getting the cell phone and they look and touch each other, that is one way I communicate. And also like the vibration. Shoku used a lot of vibration to know what's happening all.
Oh yeah, the whole vibration stuff, and like the whole like the whole like she's the one of the parts that I liked a lot was the part, you remember the part where they're watching fireworks together, and like she literally is like putting her hands on the ground and she's like tuning in to like the vibrations in the air and the vibrations, like the sensations that it's giving her. And like in a sense, like she's daredeviling the shit out of that situation, and she's just like in tune, and like everyone else, like all they hear is boom, boom, ba boom, boom. But she's just like she's hearing the music in the air essentially. Like she's hearing the stuff that we can't because we're so ingrained in what we hear and that sort of thing.
What I really love about that scene is the scene is quiet. We don't hear any music and so on that scene. They really turn it down just to focus on the important stuff. And so.
Yeah, keep going. Like what? That's so you're saying that like that in that scene, the thing that you thought was beautiful was the fact that she technically is not hearing anything at all. Like she's hearing the music of the universe, but yet she's not hearing anything at all. Like she's hearing a different song than what we would typically hear. Is basically what you're trying to say.
Yeah, and the movie showed it to. We don't hear any music or anything at all in that moment. They all tone it down, and what they're trying to convey is what she is feeling basically. And communication is a really important theme across the movie. Like even when they are kids, she was trying the best to communicate with each other the best she could. She used sign language. Everybody could write in a book. And then we also have the moment that he erasing something from his toolkit, and he just acting like he wants to listen to what she's saying. And one of those things that really hit me in the heart is when she says, "I'm trying the best I can." She's trying the best she can to communicate, to be friendly with him, to let him understand her, and he just wants to listen when he kicks. I think he tried the best to listen throughout the movie, but he just heard what he thinks is benefiting him, and like what he sees is still that childhood friend that he had bullied a lot and feel guilty about. But what she sees is she sees herself like the person that made everything harder for everyone else.
Yeah.
Even though she thinks her existence made it harder for people around her.
I want to talk about that part where she like screams at him. She's there in the classroom scene, and they're like she's trying to do something with the desk, and she like literally jumps on him because of the fact that they're like, you know, they get to a point where like you spent like this entire time watching them go back and forth in the entire time, and you're waiting for it to like explode because the pressure cooker's mounting, and out of nowhere she like in this shrill voice, because she's trying to communicate, because she like, you know, we talk about the fact that she can't, like she's got this impediment that prevents her from being able to talk, you know, as we would perceive normally. And so like she says, she like screams, she's like, "I'm trying the best I can," and like it's like she like hits, you know, just jumps on him and stuff, and he's literally pushing her to do it too. Like it wasn't like he wasn't provoked or anything. He literally was like, "You gotta do something, like what are you gonna do?" And he's like, it's like, "You keep saying sorry over and over again, and you know what else are you gonna do?" And like he like basically pushes it out of her, and she like screams, like just like, "I'm trying the best I can," like she nails him and shit. And I'm just like, when I'm all like I just like sitting there like this, I'm all like, oh fuck, like damn, like it was like that moment, like that movie where they're just like, damn. And so like that's kind of like what it was for me. Like I just kind of leaned back in my chair and I was like, shit. And like but yeah, so that was, I wanted to actually talk about that moment real quick, because that moment hit me. Like I you know, normally in a moment like that you just kind of look back and you're just like, all right, that was intense. But like the way it was masterfully delivered, like how she delivered that, like the voice actors delivered that line, and like just how they did that scene and everything, it hits you, like it hits you hard. And there's quite a few scenes in this movie that do that too. Like, there's a character that I want to talk about, by the way, that drove me insane. Naoko Ueno. And then that one dude that they run into near the very end of the like middle way when they're at the fair, and he goes to go pick up the food, and that's that kid from the very beginning with the glasses and shit. The combination of Naoko and him, they drove me crazy. I wanted to punch them multiple times. What are your thoughts on those people, huh? On those characters?
I hated her, but I also think that it's kind of the reason it meant to. You should hate her, but she also plays an important part of the story because she showed how it would be if he wouldn't change. She is still the same girl as she was in elementary school.
Yeah.
And you see how, and also she also showed that the part to make Shoku more jealous because after they meet, Shoku wanted to speak with him and even say "I love you," which he thinks he said something about the moon.
That part was adorable, by the way. That part was adorable because she's sitting there saying "I love you" like over and over, like a couple times, and trying to tell him that, like, you know, that she loves him. Like, she's basically making a massive confession moment. You know, he spent this entire time thinking, is it okay that I even talk to her? Is it okay that I'm around her? Is it okay if I even hang out with her? You know, he's always asking, like, is it okay if I do this? Like, she's got her thing of, I'm sorry. Him, it's, is it okay if I do that? Like, he's asking permission where she's apologizing. And so there's this part where she, like, goes, I'm sorry, I love you and stuff. And he's just like, the moon? Like, yeah, there's a moon. What does that have to do with the gift? Like, what is she talking about? And, like, her sister's just like, you dummy, you dumbass. Like, that was hilarious. Like, by the way, her sister, that was one of my favorite characters in the movie. Was at first, like, the sister was kind of like you're not sure whether she's gonna annoy the hell out of you because you're like, this person's a jerk off. But then, like, later on is like you get to know her character and stuff, and like you see her like taking pictures of the dead shit and like dead things and things like that, and you start to see her develop like layers of her characters being enveloped in everything. She becomes one of my favorite characters by the time it gets to that point.
She is really skeptical about him, and like we understand it because he one of the reasons that her sister is depressed.
Yes.
And the reason why she is taking all these pictures about dead animal is to scare her sister off to commit suicide. And that's how we learned that her sister had been suicidal for a long time already. And she really worried about her sister, and it was about that point that her granddad asked her if she alright because she put so time about her sister. And then she just responded to the granddad, but you do that as well. And the granddad said, that's all that thing.
Oh yeah, no, I actually dug the sister character a lot because, like, the sister character was like that assistant character, like the sidekick, in which not only do you learn about, the characters more through her photography abilities, but also you learn about the fact that you figure out that layer where you're reminded by the end, you're reminded that just like Shoko has been trying to kill herself or trying to be on the verge of suicide. So, like, suicide's a big underlying ominous, like, adversary in this movie because, like, both of our lead characters are on the edge. Like, they're all on the edge. Like, you may not know it, like, you may not notice it, but the very beginning of the movie starts out with, Shoyo being like, I'm gonna die. And then, like, you got, like, Shoko who, is there's been, like, there were parts where, like, she was laying on the bed screaming because, like, her ears, like, they were, like, her hearing aids on the dresser, and she's, like, in a fetal position, and you know, she's obviously going through extreme duress and pain and stress out, you know, she's stressed out the hell. And then, like, there's different parts of the movie where they were hinting at the fact that, you know, she could have been on the edge. And then they just kind of confirm it near the end when, you know, they're both, the mom and the sister are staring at the wall, and it's like this gallery of, like, dead things. And, like, the word death is literally, like, it's like it's spray painted on the wall with how many pictures are on the wall. And she's like, I thought that by putting all these pictures on the wall, I'd stop this from happening. And, like, it just hits you because you're just like, that's why she's been doing all this. Like, I kind of inferred, but it fucking hit. Like, it hits hard because you're just like, that confirms it. And so it's like, yeah. So that's the one thing that I was thinking about as well was the fact that the sister character was our way of seeing them from the outside. It was our way of seeing Shoko and Shoyo from the outside. And back to what you were talking about before with no, what was her name again? My brain. No, yeah, Ueno. Noeko Ueno. The fact that she basically is the other side, the flip side of Shoyo. She's the flip side. Like, that's why I asked you about it, because I wanted you to, like, go into your point into why I probably hated her character. The fact that, you know, she's the flip side. She's the other side of the mirror that is Shoyo. Like, she's what he would be if he doesn't learn anything from this movie. Like, if he doesn't learn anything, or if he ends up, you know, regressing in character instead of developing as a character, if he regresses, like, if they made a sequel to this movie and he learned nothing, he would basically become her, like a version of her. And that's a good call out that you're making there. So what are some of the other things that you want to talk about real quick on this movie? I'm going to plug in my laptop real quick.
You mentioned about the suicide, and in some way that what kind of foreshadowing throughout the movie. Like, we have the pit scene, and when he is trying to give her, well, he has read her notebook, and he doesn't want her to read the notebook because the notebook had all of these mean spirits in there said to her, and that just shows how she's still having the mean spirits been around her all the day. And even on the prison, when they are
keep going.
They eventually come into the water, and she is following the book, and we see how he is trying to grab her, but he failed. And then he also jumped into the water. I think that was a bit of foreshadowing of what will happen later on. But later on, he actually grabbed her on the apartment building, but he is the one that still fell down.
That is a fantastic call out right there on the fact that there is a bit of foreshadowing there when he goes to drop when she goes and jumps in the lake going after the notebook, and then he jumps in with her. They're essentially rebirthing as characters in that moment, because at the very beginning of the movie, when they show like the scenes of like in the water, and like they show like pieces of the notebook and like the papers that are in the water and everything, and they're showing the characters like in fetal position, and they're like, you know, got like papers on their heads and everything like that. What they're basically showing is like a rebirth or a reboot of their relationship. And it's almost like they're re-Christing themselves. But it's also foreshadowing the fact that she'll eventually try to jump off the ledge, and he will eventually try to rescue her. And it's foreshadowing that dark, ominous moment where I'm not going to say whether or not someone lives or dies or not, but I will say that that is an excellent point you're making there on the fact that there's that ominous foreshadowing. Honestly, that was one of my favorite parts of the movie, because that's where we really see them connect again, like reconnect as characters. And I'm a sucker for love stories, and I'm a sucker for I'm like one of those guys. I'm one of those guys that's like they're like, as much as I like horror and as much as I like, you know, action stuff, and as much as I like other stuff that, you know, guys are typically into, I am a sucker for love stories, and so I actually like really badly wanted them to be like together by the end. Even though like he was a bully and stuff, and even though like you grow up hating when the bully and the chick are together by the end. In this particular movie, in this context of like how they told the story and just how much they match, essentially, like I really badly wanted them to at least be on the verge of together by the end, because this story does take place over years, and so you're sort of like going with them, and it's like a denouement by the end where there's like a coming of age moment where like it seems like all these characters have learned something new, and all these characters have kind of grown as people. And that's one of the things that I think that is a testament to this flick, is the fact that not only does it grip you, but it also hits you hard where it needs to, because there's hitting you where you want it to, and there's like movie where you're like, I want it to be this way, or I want this out of it. Even better when it gives you what you need, where it hits you where you need, and it does what it needs to. It shows you this particular frame, this lens, like it looks through the lens of like what it's like to have these issues, what it's like to have a speech impediment, or what it's like to need hearing aids, and then like even showing like the blood that drips off the fucking ear. Like they show like what happens when you rip them out of your ear, and like they show like what happens when she goes through like 9 of them, and then like Shoyo's like his mom is just like, we're gonna go pay for that, so she pulls all the money out, literally has him hand over the money to her mom. And then like, and that becomes a powerful moment. But by the time that we get to like the third act, where both moms are like communicating, and if we didn't have that at the beginning, that wouldn't have hit as hard by the end. So it's like expertly done and stuff. Can you tell us a bit more about what your take is on that?
What I really like is the communication is a lot part of this movie, and I feel like the movie doing just that. They don't even tell you all of things, but it lets you understand in the other way. Like, just look at the contrast from the beginning of the movie when he is about to jump off the bridge, and then show him at his child, and you will note that how the way he walked a lot more comfortable and all everything like that with his body.
Yeah.
And communication is a lot part of the story. And like you said, everything leads to a moment, and we see that with the two mothers in the end, that they are connecting, and they probably have a lot in common, because both just the issue with the child and so on. And you understand each person, but one of my favorite part about this movie is that every person feel like a real person. There isn't like, a person that is overly good or overly bad, but everyone feels like they're a real person. Even
Inuara or Niwara, or I'm like totally butchering the fuck out of her name right now. Naoko or Iwano or whatever her name.
Yes, because what she is.
Which one?
Naoko Ono.
Naoko
What
Ono.
It's because of human emotion. That she is in love with the main character, which is they are given hints throughout the movie, even in the first couple of scenes where you just see her look at his death and then look away again. That tells us a lot of things that we can already figure out with just that eye.
Oh yeah. That is something that they did do a lot in the movie, was the fact that I know I'm basically joining on what you're talking about, and stuff, but I'm helping you kind of explain it a little bit on the fact that because I know that sometimes you have trouble explaining some things, so I figured I'd help out a little bit. I don't want to, I'm not meaning
English is not my first language.
Yeah.
You had not to know that.
Yeah, and so it's like she basically is pining after him throughout the entire movie, and he is pining after Shoyo the entire movie. And so there's different moments where like they're riding bikes. She literally jumps on the back of his bike because he's trying to. She's in the town square and he's trying to go. He sees her. She Shoyo across the street, and he's just like, I want to go talk to you. And he's totally dead set on ending up running into her. And Naoko is just like, hello, I'm right here. Like the way her body language is and the way that she communicates and stuff, she's just like, hi. And so like she's behind him and stuff, and she's like got like the whole averts her gaze when he looks at her, but then she is like totally like type of thing towards him. And so that's kind of like, I know that's what you were kind of trying to get at. So like and that's like
movie.
Yeah, and so it's like she basically, like I agree with you on the fact that she is kind of like a more complete like character. And like if this were any other movie, or if this were any other story, or any other person wrote this story, that would have been inferior. Like it's a testament to the ability of the writers, of the fact that they were able to capture that emotion, especially since in the appropriate moments she tells you what she's going through. Like the part where we find out about the videotape, it could have been a total Mean Girls moment where like, I don't know if you remember that movie, but like where like the bratty chicks from Mean Girls, but like there could have been a Mean Girls moment where they're sitting there in the videotape footage, and you find out about what's going on between Shoyo and Naoko. And it could have been a total Mean Girls moment, but instead it was like a revelation of like, this is actually what Nyoko's been going through this entire time. Yeah, it kind of goes against Shoyo, and yeah, it kind of makes the other characters kind of feel shitty, but this is what Nyoko's been actually dealing with, and this is what she's going with inside. And this is this is her own trauma, like her own passive trauma, because she's got like a passive trauma going on, whereas a lot of these other characters have more active ones. And that's another thing. Remember how I talked about how a lot of stories have traumas and stuff? This story is filled with trauma. Like, this story is filled with traumatic experiences. Like, it could almost be a horror movie in some ways. Like, if you took away all the other parts of the movie where it was, like, all nice and sunshiny and colorful and, like, the beautiful cinematography and, like, the music scores and things like that, it could almost be a horror movie, because the parts where like he's walking throughout the school and all the X's are on their faces, and like all you hear is like this drum beat in the background, like with like them trying to communicate with him, and he's like hearing half of what they're saying, and he's hearing like the whole and like he's hearing like the little bit of like the conversation, but like he's losing it as well because of his anxiety. Like this movie could have been a horror movie, but yet it wasn't. It was like a romance drama. And so I took over a little bit more there, but so like as far as like these characters being real people, one thing I want to talk about real quick, you remember that part like I almost like dismissively talked about was at the park, or the amusement park, is where he's going to get his food. He gets his food and like he talks to the kid with the glasses real quick. Even he was a complete character. He may not have had a complete total arc, but he was still a complete character, because he was still affected by everything. Go ahead.
This movie he finally gets some friends throughout the movie, and everything he got them. No one is the person human being, and everyone is flawed in some way and deal with the problem. Like we have Shahara, that she is really afraid of confrontation with throughout the movie, and even she had an arc when she is on like a roller coaster, and in the roller coaster he said to him that she used to be afraid to get on a roller coaster, but now she is still afraid, but she will face it and figure out what she will think about it later. And like every character deal with some more problem. We all have also Kawaii. How do I pronounce her name? Miki Kawaii, I think. And she is like, she a person that she doesn't know when she had done something wrong, like, oh, that she had also been behind that person's back and never said something, but she also like, she almost liked the attention she gave him. John.
No, yeah, no, I agree with you on that. Like the part where he's shit on the roller coaster, and you know she's just like let's go, and like when the roller coaster gets to that dip, like that upper dip, and then just goes, like she's just like yeah, and he's just all like. And like that whole part of that roller coaster ride, like I actually like that. I dug that part a lot because like the entire movie, like as you were saying, she spends like the movie being shy and stuff, and like just not really coming out. Like you know, she's kind of still in her shell. And in that moment of catharsis where she's on the roller coaster and like that the shell breaks and she is actually outside of her shell for a moment, and she's able to like be more of herself. So to your point, like every single character, even the moms have their own moments, like where you got Shoyo's mom has like her own moments where she starts out kind of like cold and calculating, and you know most of the time she's just like, why is the boy here? Why is he here? Why is, you know, why do, you know, I don't like it when you hang out with this boy. Like she's got like that whole coldness to it. But then you got Shoko, who's the opposite, who's like, and then they flip, like midway through the movie, and they flip.
Her mom may also like, she gotten really cold around him, but later on when the suicide attempt happened and he failed, we see her apologize to the other mom and so on, and like we see that side that she probably at least paid for him and as well.
Oh yeah, no, I absolutely dug that part a lot. That's part of why I feel like at this movie, I was getting frustrated with this movie. I'll be honest about that. Like I got halfway through this movie, and Amber's like, "It has a good ending, I swear." And like I was just like, I was getting ready to like punch the screen. I was like, "These sons of bitches!" And like I was like, "Son of a bitch!" For like halfway through the movie when I got gut punched for the 8th time, and fucking like when they showed like the moms like, you know, basically like apologizing to each other out the ass, and like they were getting real like teary eyed and everything. And this is like part of that third act we were talking about, the part where I'm not going to spoil too much, but like because I spoil everything. But like,
I mean, we can spoil it because
that is true. That is true. We could spoil the shit out of like this movie. This review, okay, this review is rated S for spoilers, so fuck it. He basically he goes to try and save her, and he falls off the ledge, and he goes into a coma for like I don't know how long it was, like months or weeks or whatnot, but he's in there for a while.
We don't know if he will be alive or not in the end. Like we know it later on, but when that happens, we don't know what will happen.
Yeah, like basically he's in a coma for a long time, and you know, for a while you don't even know if he's gonna make it out. Like you're just like, holy fuck! Like you're watching all the aftermath, you're watching all the post trauma of everybody else, you're watching them all. I think it was like 6 months that went by because like suddenly we're seeing characters that have never been around before, and they were seeing like the one dude, the dad, the stepdad or whatnot, and we're seeing like some of the other stuff that, you know, people that we've never run into. We're just like, the fuck do you come from? And then it reminds you, you're just like, oh wait, it's been months probably. He's been in this coma, and like you see her, she's, you know, her hair is long again because she cuts it part away with the movie, and then it gets long again. Like, you know, that she grows it out a bit more. And then like she goes and she has this dream that he's telling her like I'm preparing myself to die, and then she like snaps awake and then goes to chase him down in the hospital.
I don't know if that was a dream actually. I think that it may be what he had written on the notebook before she.
Oh so,
yeah, I think that is possible, and that's how they connection. Because if you look at the handwriting, it almost like it's handwriting, but I don't know.
No, that's
Maybe
what
they
it
did, maybe
was.
not.
Amber thinks that's what it was, apparently.
No, it is what it is. That's
Oh.
what the creators said it was.
Oh, the Notebook had to do with the dream and everything.
The writing that was shown in the dream was in the Notebook.
Oh, the writing that was shown in the dream was in the Notebook. Apparently, they had a bit of off-screen help from Ghostel. Ghostel chimes in right there. You know how I always call it TPAW chimes in. Well, Ghostel just chimed in, motherfuckers. So yeah, like basically, from what I understand, you know the Notebook ties it right in with the dream. Do you see the brilliance of this movie though? You see the brilliance of the writing, like on how this movie is like. That just goes to testament on how brilliant this movie was made. Like how what they did was they connected the fucking dots, like right to the center. They were just like, let me reach in there, into the heart and the soul, and just turn that gear just a bit more, and just boom, right in there. And so that's one thing. Go ahead.
One thing also, like the Shoko also have a pedo alt that in the end when she trying to weaken the friends because she thinks she has the reason that they all split apart, but she trying to weaken everyone, and she doesn't say I'm sorry when she does it either, if you know that. But instead, when someone said they have problems, the code message on the movie came from came with it, and that is you can change now. You can change the past, but you can change now. And when everyone have the problem and so on, they can really change that person and so on.
I did notice that. Yes, I definitely did notice that.
A lot in my train of thought. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're good.
Alright. But like she trying to vaccinate everyone, and I feel like change is something that is pretty important in this movie, and everybody facing something and trying to get through it, and the ability that even if you have been a bad person before, you can be something better. You can learn from your experience and fight your demons.
Yes. Hold on a second. Your camera is completely fucking frozen. Hold on a second.
Like she thinks that she stopping to apologize. She doesn't do that a lot more later on.
Yeah.
What's happening?
Turn off the camera real quick and then turn it back on.
Okay.
There we are. And we're back.
Okay. Yay.
Yes. No. There's gonna be a brief minute where your camera's not working at all. But that's fine. That's fine. I was watching the footage while you're talking. So, yeah. So if in these types of things, if you see me move off camera or whatnot, just keep going. Just don't worry about it. Keep going. We've got this. But as far as this goes, what you're saying there on the fact that this movie is basically about saying, you may not. You were talking about saying, you could change any time rather than waiting in the future or waiting for things to happen or whatever. You can seize the carpe diem, and you can seize this bitch, and you can change how you are with your attitude and with how you are with everything. And I really think that what you're saying there makes sense. I agree with that, and the fact that part of it is communication, but part of it, which is what you were talking about before that you were going to go into later on in this review, is that part of it is the fact that you can change who you are as a person, and you can learn from what you're doing before it's too late, and then you can keep going and keep moving on, and then you can treat yourself better, you can treat other people better, you can grow as a person, and it's never too late.
Exactly.
I got. Yeah, so I got what you're talking about there, right?
Yes.
All right, awesome,
Yes.
awesome. But yeah, so
So,
go ahead.
continue.
So as far as this movie goes, like by the time we get to the end here, after he wakes up and after she has they have their heart to heart on the bridge, and he holds her hand and he holds both of her hands, he's just all holds both of her hands like this, and he's talking to her and stuff, and they have that real heart to heart that you're you've been don't lie, we're all craving that moment where we're either kiss or hold hands or something, and they have that moment on that bridge, and they connect each other, and you realize that he didn't die, she didn't die, so far we're okay. We had that dangerous moment where he goes into coma and stuff like that for months, and by the time we get to the end part, finally he starts to communicate again, because remember in the middle of the movie, people's exes start dropping off their face. He gets more comfortable with himself, and at some point, the boy at the amusement park, his old elementary school buddy that turned into a total dickhole, he basically triggers him and triggers the whole anxiety and causes the exes to reappear over people's faces after they start dropping off. And near the end, we finally get some more exes dropping off faces, and he starts to actually overcome his own anxiety.
Yeah, that part that made me bawl my eyes out. When you see it walking and the music is playing really loud, you see all the eggs that fall down. Everything was just so beautiful done, and it made me bawl my eyes out. It was so good. But
you can keep going. Keep going.
I also really liked that moment when he is willing visiting the school again with her, and she's saying that it's okay to look down. She can be his eyes, kinda like that. So they are helping each other with the issue and so on that well. And I just found it beautiful.
Oh, yeah, the part where near the end where he is looking around at everybody, and for once he can actually look up and look at people's faces, look at their eyes and stuff, and do a bunch of stuff that he couldn't do before, because he spends the entire movie just not being able to look at anybody's eyes and everything. And in that moment where the music's soaring, the colors are colorful again, it's not as dark and dreary, and he's looking around and he's all cheerful, and he's looking around and he sees her and she sees him, they're locking eyes, and suddenly it's he's unlocked a whole new ability where he's able to overcome that social anxiety, and he's able to overcome that extreme crippling fear that's been riding him this entire story, this entire time. And both of them seem to have actually leveled up together, and they leveled up together. That was something about this movie that was beautiful, was the idea of togetherness, the idea that you can do things with other people and you can be better together. And that's one of the things I think that is one of the messages of this movie.
Exactly. They deal about connect with each other and not be alone with everything, because you can, with someone else, everything can become easier.
All right. Any final thoughts you have on this movie? Because I'm pretty sure that we've gotten to the point where you don't have much else left to say.
I have something to say, but it's hard to communicate. But what I would say, the movie is really good, and one thing they really are doing well is the emotional part, and a lot of show you, not tell. A lot of communicate, a lot of the communication to the viewers is between how the face looks like, how they're walking, and so on. In the end of the movie, how to say it again? Even she was afraid with consultation, and with the still she kind of afraid when she came Joey to her. But he can look quite in the eyes as well. But even she has her moments. And like a lot of this movie about communication, and they are doing that part easier than like, even that part when I don't know if you noticed when he walking past when he walking past her and he doesn't notice that he is wet and all this. I wanna, but it's about communication and understanding each other. And
Oh
that's
yeah,
something
yeah. I did
word-
notice that. Yeah.
the world really needs to know. And I just noticed that everywhere in the world right now, because a lot of communication is happening every day. And if we just knew how to communicate.
Yeah, we've talked about that before in previous conversations on the fact that, you know, if everybody were to actually just listen to each other and communicate and actually, like, talk and stuff and, like, let go of their differences and let go of, like, the things, the walls that prevent us all from being able to communicate in such a beautiful way, that we would have a lot less problems, like, as a society. And, like, for instance, like, it's amazing because I'm in America and you're in Sweden, and yet here we are communicating over the internet, and here we are being able to do a movie review together, and here you are able to overcome anxiety barrier, because I know that you have those like you relate to the main character, you relate to Shoko. I know that.
Yes.
And me, I've related to Shoyo in a way because of the fact that, you know, I have that. I don't have like the type of stuff he's dealing with necessarily, but I have like a version of it where, like, as a child in high school and a child in middle school and stuff like that, like, I was so ingrained in, like, the idea of video games and the idea of, like, the digital world, because I didn't know how to interact with people. Because, like, it wasn't necessarily the fact that I was sheltered. It was the fact that, like, my mom, when I was younger, didn't know how to communicate or didn't know how to, like, teach us how to communicate. And so when it came to, like, talking to people, like, where he's, like, constantly saying, is this okay? Like, I had those moments. And where, like, he's saying, he gets angry, like, he reacts in anger, and he reacts in frustration, and then, like, he lashes out and stuff. Like, that was something that I did as a child, because, you know, my mom was, like, 16, 17 when she had me, and so, therefore, when I'm, like, a 4 or 5 year old, she's barely 20. Like, she's 20, 21. She's still technically a kid because her highest education was 8th grade. And, you know, which is only, like, 2 grades above what these kids are at, you know, in the beginning of this movie. And so at a certain level, her maturity was dampened. And so, as you know, just getting a little bit personal here, like, when I'm watching this movie and I'm watching, you know, Shoko or Shoyo, I'm, like, watching a version of myself, and I'm, like, midway through this movie, I'm, like, having mixed feelings, because I'm, like, how much of a dumbass was I at that age, or how much of a douche was I when I was younger? And, like, you start to think, you know, if I remember on my death, like, actually, like, on my true deathbed, like, am I gonna die alone? Like, you know, it makes you think. This movie really makes you think and really makes you confront. It's doing what it's doing to the characters. It's forcing them to face themselves, but it's also forcing you as the audience to really think about yourself and be like, if you're in a situation, like, how would you react? Like, how? And that's one of the reasons why I think this has such powerful storytelling. I know that you told me before that you have similar stuff that, like, you're not deaf or anything, but, like, you have similar stuff that, you know, Shoya or Shoko has struggled with. And so, I think you're doing great, by the way.
Friendship and so on. I won't go in depth with it, but I have feel alone a lot and so on.
Right.
And that's something that we can relate on.
Yeah, so that's why I didn't want to, like, you know, go into, like, all the stuff you told me about before.
Yeah.
I just figured, you know, be like, hey, you've had similar experiences that you told me about. So in a lot of ways, this movie was pretty cathartic for you, wasn't it? It was pretty cathartic for me. Like, I was hit hard by this movie, like I said before.
I think you're really good. it's like in a movie that it is like a roller coaster, and you feel with so much emotion, but I still want to rewatch it again and again and again because I just found the movie so beautiful.
I was trying to get you to watch it with me the other day. Remember, I was like, hey, you know, let's watch it, and then you're like, no, Netflix can't do Discord, and I'm like, what? And like, I was so disappointed. Like, I was just like, no, because I wanted to because I know that this movie means a lot to you, and you keep bringing it up as like, because I would be like asking, be like, hey, you know, we should do a movie review of some kind, and you're like, maybe I'll find one, and then finally you're like, hey, have you ever seen Silent Voice? I'm like, no. And you're like, you should totally watch it, and you're like, kept pushing, and you're like, watch it. And I'm like, what is he talking? Like, why is he pushing this movie? And then when I watched it, I was just like, this is why. It's right there. Like, it's a thing. But like,
I know that. But this is my first movie review, and maybe it shows that I'm not that good at it. But this just shows for me as well because it is something would have been afraid to do for like last year. But I have like developed as a human being and faced my fears and so on. Keep doing it. Kind of like Dara in the movie, keep facing her fear. And I feel like I can relate to not only the main character, but a lot of the side character as well. Like, I can take pictures on each character and relate to them. Yeah.
No, I definitely appreciate you taking the time to do this review with me and stuff, considering the fact that like, yeah, considering the fact that like you were telling me before, and you're like, I'm gonna be terrible at this, and I'm like, no, you're not. Like, you'll be fine. We got this. We'll do this. And I told you, like I said before, like it's a conversation, and it's us basically telling the viewer a story of like what we saw and like our observations of, you know, what we think of it. And you know, they're not going on IMDb or some other page, because they could easily go on IMDb and be like plot description. But for us, it's like, this is us telling the viewer, but telling the viewer like what our take on the movie was, and like from our perception. And I think that you're doing really fantastic at conveying that. Like, you were pointing out stuff that I wasn't thinking about. So I think that you're doing really great, and I really appreciate you taking the time to do this with me, for sure. But yeah, so any closing thoughts we have?
That has been you said before. The closing for this movie is a really beautiful movie. And if you haven't watched it, watch it because it hits you emotionally. And I'm a person that I do not cry a lot when I'm watching movies and so on. This movie makes me cry every time I see it. And it just hits you, and it deals with human emotion. So, and a lot of people can recognize with.
Yeah, so I would say in closing that, like before I said that it drop kicked me in the nuts, I feel like that was an understatement of the year. Like, I feel like by the end of this movie, not only was I tired, because, you know, I've been having a lot of nights where like I stay up a little too late, so I'm trying to make sure the house is clean, make sure to take care of the kids, things like that. But at the end of the day, like, when I was sitting on the couch and I told Janice, I was like, I'm wrestling with myself. Like, I want to be able to, I want to step up and do this review tonight. It was last night. But at the same time, I'm also tired. He's like, yeah, just go to bed and it's fine. We'll do it tomorrow. And I'm like, thinking to myself, I'm like, I've been saying do it tomorrow like 3 days. I'm like, I hate pushing stuff off. But like, he was fine with it. He was super nice about it. And so, but like, in reality, the reason why I had to take the extra day was he was right. It hits you, and it's a lot to process. Like, so if you go into this movie, like, go into it with an open mind, but also go into it expecting to, you know, no one's going to be holding an onion underneath your eyeball. Like, you're going to cry of your own accord, or you're just going to kind of stare at it and wonder where the cue card is with cry. But it's going to hit you. It's going to tear at your heartstrings. I was still thinking about this movie while I was working today. Like, and as I was walking back from the gas station before we did this review, before we started recording this review, I was carrying my drink and walking back, and all I heard in my head was Shoyo screaming at Shoko, Shoko screaming at Shoyo, because I'm getting my names back mixed together. I'm trying the best I can. Like, that's literally what I heard in my head. I was like, parts of this movie were replaying in my head, like, throughout today, and it hits you.
I feel like this movie, it has so many moments that it has to pick just one moment that you're emotional. Like, the movie, you just hit scene, and yeah, I cried multiple times during the movie because it's so much going on.
Yeah, and this is a beautiful movie. Like, in all reality, this is a beautiful movie. Like, it's got beautiful cinematography, it's got a beautiful music score, it's got beautiful soundscapes that really illustrate, like, the person's, like, whether they have, like, as we talked about, like, anxiety, depression. It's got, like, it hits all the notes. And I'm someone who deals with anxiety. Like, for me, like, I may come off as, like, overly exuberant and, like, very expressive and everything, but that's also part of me just trying to let go of, like, my extreme fear of expression. Like, in the one review on my channel, it's the Wonder Woman one. I am having a hard time with balancing being able to make a review while also being expressive, and Janos was talking to me about it off camera and being like, hey, this is what I'm seeing, stuff like that, and I was just like, I was like going, and so, but like, so for me, it's like, I deal with anxiety on a daily, and I have a job that's like stressing and stuff, but you get through it, and you try to just soldier your way through. And so one thing I have to say about this movie was that it really shows you and highlights to you, your own shortcomings, but also your own strengths when it comes to communication, when it comes to your ability to be a human. And I think that that's a testament to this movie. And so in closing, I'll just say that it's a gorgeous flick. Definitely see it. Like we said, it's called a silent voice, but in all reality, I think it's called a loud voice, because it's loud. Like, it gets you going. So
Totally, and they communicate in so many ways, and like you said, I have probably done at least the same amount of mistakes, if not more, than you did in your Wonder Woman review. But when you're starting up, you're learning, and in my first review, I will learn throughout.
Yes. And then, where else can they find you, Janos? Like, is there any, like, media outlets or anything that you do?
I have a YouTube channel. I have not uploaded anything yet, but I'm planning to upload a short story I'm working on, and you will find everything below, in the description below, but it's Jonasnator in my YouTube channel, and you can also follow me on Twitter, Jonasnator as well. Well, I'm just posting random stuff, but feel to follow.
Awesome stuff. Yeah, and people, if you like this review that we're doing, and you like, how, you're like, these guys are fucking entertaining. And if you like what we've done and everything, then hit the like button, but also comment below and let us know any other things you want us to do. Because I'm totally down with bringing him back on as long as he's up for it, and reviewing more stuff or making other videos. And so if you guys have any ideas or you guys want us to do anything, do that. And also punch that subscribe button in its turkey face and hit the bell. That way, you guys will be alerted for the next whatever it is that I'm doing. But this has been TPAW Chimes In, featuring Janos, of course, and of course you got a little bit of Ghostella action in the background. And so you got TPAW chimes in with our very own awesome, one of my best buddies in the world, Janos, the Jonasnator, and thank you very much for tuning in.
Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely, you're very welcome. So yeah, there we go.